You are listening to Anna Letitia Cook at Women Up Radio.
Good morning and welcome to Women Up Radio. Today's guest is Stephanie Green. She's an artist, activist, entrepreneur and businesswoman, mother, nature lover and founder of Waldorf Family and Dauntless Daughters. So welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Hi, nice to be here.
Last time we were talking about women in STEM and inspiring the next generation. Now that was, 3 years ago, something like that, ages ago. So what's happened over the last few years and has there been much progress?
Yes. Well, you and I were speaking before the show very briefly about our kind of journeys to this point. So you're right, I was running Dauntless Daughters and speaking all over the place, lots of conferences and in schools. We still have a shop that has, colouring books and reading books. And I felt like we were on the crest of a wave or the coal face, and we worked really relentlessly for several years. And then it felt like something shifted. Publishers had kind of got the message that little girls wanted, women in their books, and they wanted STEM in their books. And so, a great example is that the Rainbow Fairies books, which my children read, which I am not the biggest fan of, but I understand their purpose. They're, for emerging readers, and they're quite good when that. But now the ones they got out of the library on the weekend were the firefighter, the skateboarder, the engineer, the paramedic, the doctor. And I'm like, yes, all right. So, you've wrapped it in a fairy, but that's pretty similar to what we were doing with Dauntless. We made bold, vibrant pink, and there's still a place for that because some people are still there. But I think the conversation on STEM has moved on a little. I feel like there was a whole heap of women doing the same, striving. And I feel like we got somewhere with that, actually. I feel like we reformed quite a lot. And I know that a great deal's been done with curriculums to introduce women and diversity into curriculums in school, which obviously has a huge impact. For me personally, we went from Dauntless being my focus as an artist to moving through. I was working with a friend who's a scientist, and we did a book, a really gentle book about the the water cycle, the rock and the water cycle. We had many discussions, pretty intellectual, lofty discussions about whether science had been wrapped in a masculinity. And after all of those conversations, I came to the position that actually what we needed was to be honest in our approach to the whole scenario. Now I think we have made a point that women need to be in junior curriculums, in primary curriculums, and that the STEM, the leaky pipeline in STEM is actually linked back to what's happening in primary school. And I think that if we can approach and bring femininity and colour and beauty into primary curriculums, then we have a chance of addressing that in a different way as well, from a different side of the prism. So that's kind of where we've been with STEM over the last few years.
I know your illustrations and children's educational resources. You've got a range of maths and science tools, am I right?
Yes.
So can you tell me more about them and what they do to help children better understand issues in a natural and fun way? Because I know, as well as Dauntless Daughters and really getting children to appreciate gender equality, you also very much have gone into nature. So is that also in the maths and science tools, or is that separate things? Oh, really?
No, they're all linked in the big spider web that is my brain. I think that we and the cosmos are in such perfect harmonious balance. If we look at it, every yin has a yang, and night has day, and winter has summer. And I think if we could take our lead from that, it's something that resonates with us on a kind of on a cellular level without being too arty about it. And I think if we can tap into that for children, we stand a chance of being able to awaken in them a wonder and a thirst for science learning. So I've got an example actually, because I think it's pretty hard. So this is, I don't know whether you can see this.
Wow.
This is
isn't it gorgeous?
It's not released yet, so you're getting a sneak peek. This is our life cycles board.
Oh, it's wow.
So this is all about, in the primary curriculum, you have to learn about the life cycles of the different animals. So if we take this bit, that's got the life cycle of the frog coming this way, but also the butterfly coming this way.
Yep.
There's the sheep all the way around it. And I think, this is not, we make it sustainably and ethically and in the UK and all of those good things, but it is not what you typically get in a school. It's not what we would call black and white flat learning, which I think appeals to a more masculine brain. That is a rainbow, a beautiful rainbow world, like the world outside our windows. And my hope is that will deeply resonate with, little girls. And the same, so we've got this is the weather wheel for much younger ones. Oh, wow. And that's the same kind of rainbow aesthetic, but also it's a girl in the middle pointing to what weather is.
Yeah.
And I think that representation, the incidental representation of women and diversity is really important in our learning resources, because it just normalizes what is actually outside our own window, our own door.
Yeah. But so, looking at those, my grandson is 5 years old. Yeah. And I mean, he would adore both of those. So if you think he's a boy, obviously. He's seeing girls there as the leaders. So for him, automatically, he's not thinking, it's me, the boy. He's accepting it. And he would absolutely adore it.
I think we naturally, that rainbow palette, everyone loves the rainbow. When you see a rainbow in the sky, I defy one person not to have a little leap in their heart to go, oh, that is so pretty.
Yes.
And I think that if we can reassure boys that it's okay to stay in that space of wonder and beauty, that then equips them to be actual egalitarian adults, to view each, to respect beauty and wonder in the feminine in the same way we respect strength and black and white and calculation, as and I think that's and I'm saying masculine and feminine because I don't think it's a boy and girl thing. I think that I have a lot of traits in me that I think people would call masculine if they were being stereotypical. I don't think humans are built like that. I think it's a line between feminine and masculine, and we're all somewhere along that and have bits of both. And I think that for me is the purpose of the Waldorf family stuff, one of many purposes, but to say, that's okay. It's all in us. We don't have to be so boxing ourselves in.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And I know, going on to something different, because I also read with the information you sent me beforehand, and this is getting on to the taboo subject of biological differences between men and women, which have a significant impact on progress, because I'm talking about periods and the menopause.
Internationally,
and it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, what you are. Women have periods, women have the menopause, men don't. It's beginning slightly to be talked about, but very slightly. And even I would say my age group are much less likely to talk about it and much more likely to be embarrassed. But I think with the younger generations, they're beginning to talk about it, but again, slightly, not very much. But obviously these can have a really big impact on career, on equality, and also on well-being. So do you think they are being taken into consideration more? And have you created anything that brings this more into people's vision so that they can approach it with less panic, either from talking about it or actually living through it? what's happening in that part of the world?
So we've got a book with Dauntless Daughters called Why Mummy Bleeds.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't write it, I illustrated it. Rachel Hertog's from Moon Times, as was, I think Moon Times has been bought out, but they're a sustainable menstrual product company. They're great, by the way. A little promo for them.
Obviously, yes.
So Rachel wrote the words and I illustrated it, and that is saying to very young children, you know, what's happening with mummy, you know, why are there some days where we're, you know, want to be snuggled up, some days that we're really expansive. I think that not enough is being done, is it? Me and my female friends had a conversation a few weeks ago about an article that was in, I think it was in The Guardian or Channel 4, that was that the menopause is not taught at medical school still. And
you're joking.
It's not because, and one of the husbands, I won't say who, said, well, you can't address every niche problem. And it's like,
how is it a niche problem?
How is it a niche problem? How is this a niche problem? But I think that psychological part for us, that it's a niche, that's a small thing, because we never talk about it.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, we've got just that one product at the moment that's kind of working on that idea. But I think that, you know, having a daughter that's kind of almost entering puberty, we've been looking around at what other books are available. And there is a wealth now of much more balanced books that talk about, you know, periods in a bit more open discussion. However, none of them had sustainable products listed as their menstrual products, which I was quite shocked by.
Oh,
but
really?
I think that will come, because now you've got, you know, something like the Moon Cup is sold in boots, which I know kind of 7 years ago it wasn't. So I think those things will shift, but slowly, right?
And do you think with business and corporate, because I know there's another lady I'm going to be interviewing again, and she's menopause in the workplace, and she's won awards for it, and she's really, you know, going into what people need to do because it has such an impact. And going through the menopause, I mean, you lose your brain, you lose everything temporarily. And obviously it needs to be taken into account. Do you think that periods in the workplace are being given, I mean, I would say both of these are still very much in their infancy. They're not being talked about a lot,
100%.
but it seems that menopause maybe is being slightly more taken into account than periods. Do you think there's a day when companies might be able to somehow do something or give some kind of understanding or whatever? Do you think it's, sorry.
Yeah, there was a company down in Bristol that doesn't work 7 days a week, or 5 days a week, 9 to 5. They have cyclical working, so they're predominantly female owned, female run, and they work on cyclical working. And Scotland, and Scotland, I think in November, I think I'm right in saying, they made menstrual products free for everybody, didn't they?
Yeah, I heard that.
Recognise that, you know, that's an essential element of our lives. And so I think you have these little pops of inspiration, and as we lived through with the kind of women in STEM, I think that more and more that will grow and become a wave.
Yes.
I would hope. And I would hope that, you know, perhaps we're talking about menstruation more, more menopause more, should I say, because we have a bunch of feminists that got older. You know, so we're a kind of you know, liberated crew going through that now. So I hope, you know, maybe when Eden's generation, my daughter's generation, come up, they'll be like, well, I'm not working the full month in the way that they do, because I think that's a really interesting thing. We only work the way we work because of the Industrial Revolution, industrialization of the workforce, by men for men, when men were the only people in the workplace. And so actually, if we lived in a matriarchal society, I don't think we'd work in the same way. We'd be much more productive over, you know, maybe 3 weeks, and then everyone would have a week off, maybe, or something.
Make much more sense. Much more sense.
It would.
Well, it would. And I mean, if you think of some of these companies You hear of them in Canada and the States. I'm not sure that they exist so much in Europe, where they let people work when they want. I mean, they have to work, they have to do their work, but if they want to take lots of holiday, if they need days and days and days off to look after somebody in their family who's ill, it's not a problem. And the other co-workers sort of take up the slack and everybody helps everyone. If they had the system where periods were taken into account, I mean, periods, they're not always awful. Sometimes you're absolutely fine. It's just maybe one day that you feel decidedly not with it. But if they would allow for that without making a big song and dance about it, I'm sure the appreciation of the employees that was taken into account, they would take up the slack. And it needs to be positive, win-win, and not critical, defensive, fighting. You know, it's
I think if we teach our girls to respect the cycle that they have in them, you know, to respect what Mother Nature gave us, which is a cyclical body. I think, I know as an artist, there are times when I'm hugely productive, sometimes when I need to rest. And so I work like I'm blessed I can do what I like, really. But I do work like that. I work very cyclically. And I think that the more we can show girls that, you know, you don't have to be exhausted when your period comes, when you're bleeding, you can actually rest then, because and nourish your body and recenter, because some of our kind of, you know, amazingness, some of the magic of women is the fact that if we lean into that, then actually we're capable of magnificent things. So I hope so.
We need more women at the top, then they can put it into place. So it all goes hand in hand, basically.
Exactly. It goes round, doesn't it?
So I've got another question for you, which do you think women have a different view or act differently on all these issues to men? And I don't mean exactly equality, but the approaches towards equality. So starting from childhood up, do they see it as being a different problem, a different fight? And do they bring it out into the open in the same way? Do you understand what I mean? I'm not very clear. It's
girls or women?
Women. Well, girls and women. I mean, girls and boys and men and women, because I'm sure if you go into a boardroom meeting about gender equality, I still think that men will see one problem, women will see a different problem, and the way they look at approaching it, again, I don't think they're going to see it in the same way. I think they're going to have completely different visions, completely different solutions, and I'm not sure that we're going to progress enormously until somehow the two visions can become at least clearer to each other, even if they never see it the same way, but just being able to understand where the other one's coming from and understand the other potential solutions. Do you see anything like that? And do you see that with kids as well?
Yeah, I think what you see from my experience, what you see with a lot of men is that they feel very attacked when you say this situation's unequal. You know, us earning 80p and you earning £1 is unequal. Can we rectify that? And good men say, rightly so, it's not my fault. I didn't do that. And they don't realize that the next step beyond that, beyond the being defensive, is actually to open up and say, okay, I didn't do that, but I will help resolve it. And so we need to, and this is a really interesting bit, I think, we need to gently lift the men to feminism, I think. And I think if we can find ways of doing that, hence the empowering that beautiful rainbow palette and the wonder in the primary children, so that hopefully by the time they're older, they can see the power in us all being equal. I listened to a really interesting speaker that said, if we could empower men to realise they could be stay-at-home caregivers,
Yep.
enough of them would give up power in the boardroom that
Yep.
enough women would just instantly take those places, and then we'd have equality. So one of the things that needs to happen in the feminist kind of in my work, maybe as a activist, or however we're framing that, one of those things is empowering boys and young men to not be frightened of equality, because I think when you are in charge, you don't want to lose that. You don't want to give it up. You don't want to somehow, be, oh, well, I have to be under the thumb, or I have to be less than a woman.
Yeah.
And I think getting round that mentality is key to moving the conversation on. Yeah. And you see it a lot in sports in the children's world, football particularly. It's really, really problematic. The boys won't yield any space on the playground for girls to play football. They won't pass to a girl. Yes. And so, things like that. But then we see, in a positive light, we see countries like Australia, England, Norway, New Zealand, Brazil, all of that, sign up to equal pay for female and male footballers. And I think when you have popularist things, that's the whole country's pastime, isn't it? Brazil and England, everyone loves football. And I think if they are saying men and women are equal, we're going to pay them the same. They're all amazing at football. I think at that point, and when you get more and more famous female footballers, that will trickle down to the playground, and boys will no longer feel threatened to pass the ball to the girl, because they'll realise it's just another player.
Yep. Which, that would be such a good solution. Yeah, once that actually happens. Hopefully it'll happen with rugby as well. I have to say I prefer rugby.
Yes.
But okay, so are there any other new projects that you've been involved in since we last spoke? And I know you told me about the charity work you're doing, which sounds really interesting, and the foundation that you're creating.
Yes. So this is a bigger project for us, and we're in baby steps of it. So at the moment we give charitably through an existing charity. Yeah. And they work with communities in Africa. So we're sponsoring a community in Sierra Leone to put in water, and to, things like the community leaders on the ground said, we have a school, but they don't have any desks. So it's really hard to practice writing because they have nothing to write on. So, things like that. But the thing I love about it is the fact that it's not a bunch of Western people coming in and saying, we're going to do this. It's they go and they find the community leaders, and then the community leaders say what they're going to build. Yeah. So we're doing that, but I'm working behind the scenes on setting up a trust. So I hope that will be in part environmental. So we'll plant woodland, and we're also going to start sponsoring schools, so that underprivileged schools or schools that just don't have funding at the moment can apply, and we can get a whole set of maths and science curriculum resources to them. Oh, so that's our aim. We've kind of done one school so far, but we are working on how many schools we'll be able to do in the year, and that people will be able to just apply to us for a schools place, and we'll be able to send them a whole kit, because I think
amazing.
The resources are, we make in England, everything's environmentally marked and traced, and because it's hand finished and drawn and all of those things, there's a lot of human hours involved in it. So the price point is prohibitive, I'm aware, for underprivileged classes of students and also individual families. So we're working to hopefully be able to do our part to help that. So that's the grand plan. So
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And so how long have you been involved in doing that?
So about 18 months.
Oh, right.
Now,
God, you've moved quickly to get all of that done in 18 months, dear God.
So, and over COVID while homeschooling.
Oh God,
it all was pretty, I won't lie, it was all pretty hectic for I have more grey than I did.
Well, look at this, mind you, I'm several years older than you, to say the least.
So yeah, everything moved so rapidly. When we launched Waldorf Family, it's the first project I've ever had that I have put my art, what I would call my soul work in front of the world. And that's a really nerve-wracking thing. With Dauntless Daughters, I was kind of standing behind that brand saying, I'm illustrating this, but this is the brand style and this is how I think it should look. This stuff is straight out of my heart.
It's you.
It's me. And it's like saying, hi, do you like me? And then being like, ooh. So that's terrifying as an artist, but thrilling because people did. So when we started sharing the work, it started flying. And so really rapidly we had distributors globally, shops all around the world. We're in Japan, in Australia, America, Canada, England, France. It's in 3-4 different languages now. It just went, because I think it resonates with people where they are now. Like we were saying, this wellness, this wholeness that we want, we seek, we know we need balance. And the Waldorf family really wants to help people that live in towns and cities to connect to nature.
Yes.
To connect to what we are made of flesh and bones. We're not separate to nature. We're part of nature.
Yeah.
And if we can reconcile that, we can bring wonder back into our world. And with that, through the eyes of wonder and beauty, I think everything gets better.
Oh, definitely.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, me, I mean, my family are farmers, so I grew up with nature. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're from Suffolk, so but I grew up, every day I was in the fields, or I was walking around the track, or it was all sunrise, sunset, and obviously Dad, his hours were not 9 to 5.
No.
So you get the cycles, the waves of working and not working, and I think that has helped so much. Some of the jobs I've had have been really high pressure jobs, but that connection with nature and that being able to go out and understanding you get waves of working incredibly long hours and then waves of much more calm. I think that's helped me a lot, and I think bringing that into the workplace, I mean, I keep going into the workplace and you're going into schools, I know, but in both of them, I think that really makes such a difference.
Huge.
Because if you can connect with that, if you can appreciate that, if you can relax with that, it rejuvenates everything.
Definitely. So, if you can know that a season, however hard, is going to have an end point.
Exactly.
It's not going to last forever. This season might be really hard. It might be, harvest time and you've got to go out, or it might be exam time and you've got to do exams.
Exactly.
But at some point that will subside and it will give way to, relaxing in the sunshine or whatever it is. But I think our disconnect with that is part of the unhappiness. We've got a mental health epidemic.
Yes.
Which is terrible. And if you look at the condition of children now with this, I call it a tumble dryer or the churn. Yeah. And I say often to the children, that's just part of the churn. And you don't really want to disconnect with that as much as you can, because social media and emails and phone calls has you on this constant go. And because it's computer driven and AI driven often, it doesn't have an off. The computers don't need to sleep. The algorithm never stops. It has no need to. But we do.
Yes.
Because we're flesh and bone, because we weren't made to be constantly on. We were made to do and then to rest. And, women particularly know that, don't we? Because of what we were saying earlier about the cycles. Yeah. It's really important that we do and then we rest. Yes. And I think if we can show children that, and that becomes part of their internal dialogue. They internalize doing and then resting. Then they can withstand. They're more resilient to withstand the digital world that they're going into.
Yeah, Steph, everything you're saying there, I think you need to make books for adults in the workplace. They need to understand that. if you could do exactly the same, but the business adult version, I
Yeah.
think you would completely change the whole workplace, because it's what people need to understand. It's
Yeah.
what they can't step back from.
Yeah.
And they need, you know, something that's saying, do this, do
Yeah.
this is normal, this is normal, you know. So
Yeah.
I think that should be your next project.
That's a good idea. I'll put it on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, in like 50 years when you've got time. Okay. Well, any final piece of wisdom or key strategy that you think we should keep in mind to help us going forward?
Oh, who's we? Business people or the feminists?
Anyone?
Anyone?
Yeah.
Interesting one. I I think what we've just talked about actually is essential. Knowing that you can rest,
Yeah.
and that rest is okay,
Yeah.
and that you can go. And so for me, one of the things that's kept me sane, particularly over COVID times and that lockdown, was really keying into seasonality and,
Yes.
and leaning into what we call slow living. I don't know whether you've
Yeah.
come across that before. So eating seasonal foods.
Yes.
So for example, in the summer, we're out all the time doing loads of stuff. We picnic, we eat outside, all the outside all the time, staying up quite late. In the winter and starting about now, we're lucky because we've got wood burners.
Yeah.
But we literally light the home fires and we're in. If the weather's rubbish outside, it's lovely because we live in a little low down cottage and the windows are all crisscrossy, so it's no light most of the time.
Yeah.
But in the winter when it's pelting down outside and we're all by the fire and you know, we'll be doing kind of crafts, so we try and make quite a lot of Christmas presents.
Yes.
For sustainability reasons really, and because we like doing it.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's what happens when you've got an artist for your mother, isn't it?
Yeah.
I bet they're probably like, I just want to go to House of Fraser. But we do that, and we live much slower in the winter and much faster in the summer. And I think that those things connecting to seasonality, and we pepper, because I've got young children, we pepper our year with festivals.
Yeah.
So like right now we're about to do Michaelmas, which is the St. David and the Dragon, you know, defeating the dragon. And that's all about steadying yourself and becoming strong so that you can get through winter, so that you gather you've done all of your sewing and you do good deeds for everybody else. You make sure everything's right in the world, and then you're there and you're strong and good and you're ready for the winter. And then at Christmas, make a big deal out of Christmas, and springtime, big deal out of spring festivals. Yeah. And I think doing that keeps you in tune with the year. And so I think doing that over COVID particularly helped me stay sane, because it marked the passage of time.
Yes.
It wasn't endless for us. We did festivals at home, bonfires, all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I think that really, if everyone could do that in however big and small way, but just key into the natural rhythm that surrounds us, then all of that wellness and the equality, all of that would fall into place. Yeah. Because the framework already exists in nature, doesn't it? All we've got to do actually is copy what we see.
Yeah, exactly. Even in projects, you know, you've got the beginning, the development, the end, the finish, the rejuvenation, blah blah blah.
It's like sowing seeds, it grows a flower, you harvest it. It's exactly the same, isn't it, in project work?
And everything we do is like that. And when you were saying that you as an artist, you have cycles where you're incredibly creative. Huge, I find that I'm not sure whether it's because I'm a woman or whether it's just nature or whatever, but I find I get periods when I'm really productive, endless energy, and others when I'm like a zombie in reverse. You know, I'm just like dead.
But giving your permission, yourself permission, to be okay with that.
Yeah, I don't fight it now.
Winning, isn't it? Don't fight it.
Yeah,
you know, you could spend. I can because I've done it. I can spend a day at an easel and just draw like a 5-year-old, and it's all rubbish, and it's pointless me being there because it's not going to work. And I knew it from the moment I sat down. I knew it wasn't coming out.
Yeah.
And you know, my younger self would still be there. But now I'm like, I'm going to walk the dog. I'm going to go pick some blackberries or, you know, knit something, whatever it is. But just, you know, if it's not coming, you've got to do something else.
Yes.
Resting safe in the knowledge that it will.
Yes. Yep.
And that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, Steph, it's been absolutely lovely speaking to you again.
It's been lovely to chat to you again.
And you must come on Beyond the Bottom Line.
I would love
because
to.
The wellness, well-being, I think would be great. So everybody, you've been listening to Steph Green. I will put all the links about where you can find her products, about where you can see what she does on the bottom of this page. And I hope you all join in again next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.